Chapter 255 to 258. Once upon a time. HaHaHa. Wah. In a very, very, very distant future. In a ruined kingdom, or maybe a city. Wei hey ha. A Kai temporarily resides for work reasons, who died and died and died and died agonizingly over and over again, screaming like a pig in the slaughterhouse as he fucked with a porcupine. New. Ooh. Ooh. Wa. Kai Great. JJJJJJJJ. And near him, a huge, muscular guy with 3 eyes enjoyed that grotesque spectacle, relaxing in his chair while eating sushi and crossing out lines from his list and, now, how should I kill you now? I know, by decompression. And immediately afterwards Zamasu's body began to deform, swelling in an exaggerated way, as if he were Cell trying to destroy himself, and although he did not do it voluntarily. Plufoff. Definitely exploded. And in that way Zamasu died and rose again in the endless cycle of King Mufasa an endless cycle of atrocity and gore that had already lasted almost an hour. Almost an hour in which Zamasu had time to die more than 1,000,000 times thanks to the time distortion used by Broly. A long and at the same time short interval of time in which Zamasu even cursed be immortal, in which the mothers stopped overprotecting their children by allowing them to watch the repetitive +18 movie, in which the children who saw something so horrible for the first time were sensitized to that kind of extreme violence, in which some adults fell asleep from boredom, as if the snuff movie they were watching was actually a National Geographic documentary. And despite all this, Broly still found it funny. Oh well, you've recovered already. Give me a moment, I have to look at what other comic deaths were on my list. I want an interesting one, said Broly upon seeing that Alabama Zamasu resurrected again, but not paying attention to Alabama Zamasu at all. The 90% of his attention was on his list of millions of ways to die, the other 9.99% to his sushi, the other 0.0099% to a fly that was several million kilometers away, and finally a 0.0001% to Alabama Zamasu. Die monster! Screamed Zamasu with bloodshot eyes and madness in his voice as he created an energy sword in his hand with which he charged towards Broly to cut his throat. Although he had already tried dozens of times with catastrophic results, he did not give up. What else could he do? Wait for Broly to kill him for the umpteenth time again without resisting? The result would be possibly the same, evidently, but that was not Alabama Zamasu style. Stop bothering while I look at my Excel printout, said Broly while stopping Zamasu's sword with his personalized chopsticks without even looking at Zamasu to stop that attack. Chop. Therefore adding a new type of humiliation to Zamasu's also long list, which had been trapped due to those wooden chopsticks with illustrations of Broly killing Alabama Zamasu, surrealist bastard. And that insult aroused Broly's inspiration. I know. Crushed by an anvil, said Broly as he materialized a giant anvil on top of the paralyzed Alabama Zamasu. An anvil that inevitably clank, plaff, crushed Alabama Zamasu, killing him on the spot. Ha 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 ha. Just like the coyote from Coyote and the Roadrunner. Anyway, let's choose the next one, Broly said as he focused his gaze on his lists again. And as usual Alabama Zamasu was resurrected again to get back on Broly's killing waiting list, although this time Alabama Zamasu experienced another outrage to his pride. Imposable. Is it made of Katchin? You materialized Katchin. How the hell did you do it? Alabama Zamasu asked angrily upon seeing that Broly had used, in his own way, one of the characteristic abilities of the Kais to kill him. When Kai's abilities had become so cheap that even disgusting mortals like him can use them. Can't you let me kill you without bothering, fucking racist? Substitution of blood for acid. Broly said as he used another of his bizarre techniques to kill Alabama Zamasu. Wagagagag. GGGJJJ. This time, just as he had done, substituting an extremely potent, corrosive acid for his blood. Therefore, make his body dissolve from the inside out. Ugh, that was disgusting. And the next one will be. Broly said once more as he crossed out another line and looked for the next one. And once again after resurrecting. Alabama Zamasu tried again to kill Broly. Plash. Crack. Pooh. Without success, and dying again. Do you still think you can win? Oh, I know what you're thinking. I am immortal, whatever he does to me, he can't definitely kill me while I still have a chance to do it. And not only that, every time he kills me and I resurrect, I get stronger. I just need to tire him out and wait for him to make a mistake. No matter how painful and humiliating this fight is, in the long run I will be the winner," said Broly as he put his list aside, and asked again after stopping the Alabama Zamasu ambush. "I'm right. Grjjjjj." Alabama Zamasu grunted as he felt himself being looked down upon again. However, what bothered him the most is that Broly was right, that was his plan and he didn't seem to care. That made him think. He is overestimating himself in excess and underestimating him in excess, or he knows everything and has everything under control? Even taking into account that you ignore that your fusion will only last a few more minutes, that when your fusion ends you will not be able to fuse again in an hour, and that when that happens one of yourselves will cease to be immortal. Do you really think you can do something to me in all you execrable excuse of life? Said Broly, verbally abusing his victims, as always. Come attack me. I won't even defend myself, just try to kill me, said Broly upon seeing that Alabama Zamasu refused to accept that the suffering he had endured for almost an hour had been absolutely useless. He said it while spreading his arms and legs and looking up at the sky, as if he had become a human target full of openings. Not only that, he also disabled all of his defensive abilities, Ki and Nen, from his body to be really vulnerable. Great! I will attack you with all my might. I don't care if the whole world is destroyed with you, said Alabama Zamasu, accepting Broly's invitation. It was humiliating that he underestimated him in this way, but he was not going to miss an opportunity like that. Even if it was a trap. Therefore, he began to increase and gather all the energy of his body in the classical way. No way! Shouted Trunks, Vegeta, and Goku, woke up from their nap on Broly's massage chairs upon feeling that powerful ki from someone other than Broly. Alabama Zamasu ki had become so extremely powerful after so many Zenkais thanks to that torture session that was several times higher than any of the three after using the Kaioken X20 plus all the other cheats. If something like that touched them, could kill them right away. Alabama Zamasu had turned into a monster. If I were you, apart from committing suicide for being so pathetic, I would concentrate all my power in a fixed point. If you scatter your power to attack the planet, you won't even tickle me, said Broly without moving from its previous position, but provoking even more Alabama Zamasu. And Alabama Zamasu so furious that he launched the most powerful energy attack in his history, which he did not even name. A highly concentrated energy attack who targeted all the upper body of his enemy with the intention of volatilizing all his vital organs. Boom! It was such a powerful attack that not even a god of destruction would come out unscathed or even die if he decided to receive it fully as Broly had done. Nevertheless, Broly was not a pathetic god of destruction. Impossible! Shouted Alabama Zamasu, Vegeta, and Beerus upon seeing that their enemy didn't even have a wound on his body. And while they were disappointed, outraged, and to the point of fainting, Broly was extremely furious. Fucking shitty useless KAI. You can't even hurt me. I have to do everything by myself. His intention was for Alabama Zamasu to seriously injure him to prove something, but since the useless Alabama Zamasu couldn't do even that. Clash. What? Everybody screamed upon see what Broly had just done. With his own hands, Broly had pierced his own chest, ripped out his heart and crushed it with a squeeze. And automatically, his deadly wound healed itself. It can't be. You two are. Alabama Zamasu said, so shocked and desperate by what he had just seen that was unable to finish his sentence. What he had just seen, what he had just learned, had destroyed his plan. Yes, I am immortal, actually much more immortal than you. Unlike you, I heal myself from everything. From absolutely everything, said Broly as he wiped the blood from Alabama Zamasu's cheek with his tail. And due to that action he realized a terrifying truth. What? Is my cheek bleeding? This wound, he did it to me when, Alabama Zamasu said, and thought upon noticing that his two cheeks had cuts and were bleeding. The scary thing wasn't that both of his cheeks were slashed without him noticing, after all until now he had died without knowing how thousands of times. The truly terrifying thing is that these injuries had not been caused by Broly now, but almost an hour ago. It seems that you have finally realized. How many times have I destroyed your head since I made that cut on your cheeks? How many times have I destroyed your body? And yet why hasn't that wound healed like the rest? Why aren't they healing right now, the way your fingers regenerate after blowing them up? Asked Broly with an evil while immolating all the fingers of Zamasu's body, including those of the hands and feet. BOM. 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 No, impossible, this can't be true, said Alabama Zamasu, absolutely puzzled and distraught upon see that his fingers were regenerating and the wounds on his hands, caused by the explosions, were healing, but his cheeks keep bleeding from his wound. The blood hadn't even clotted until now. His despair was so big that did not even feel pain when his 20 fingers were destroyed. That's right, I have a skill called irreversible damage that a colleague taught me that makes everything I do irreversible. When I use it, if I hurt something it cannot be cured, if I destroy something it cannot be repaired, if I kill someone it cannot be resurrected. Not even an immortal escapes that rule, said Broly with an even more malevolent smile than before. No, no. No. This can't be happening. Such thing is impossible. Shouted Alabama Zamasu like a crazy bitch, who recoiled back due to the extreme fear that Broly had just awakened in him. So far, he had managed to keep his mind relatively stable despite the situation he was in by being certain that in the long run he could be the winner thanks to his immortality and Zenkai, but Broly was not only much powerful than him. He seemed to be invulnerable to all but his own. And besides, he was immortal like him and can kill immortals like him with ease? You get it right? You cannot kill me in any way while I can eliminate your existence whenever I want. The only reason I've left you alive until now is because it's fun to watch you die. But that's not the only way I have to kill immortals, Broly said as he continued to prolong the agony of Alabama Zamasu Amaterasu. Some black flames that Alabama Zamasu could not extinguish no matter how much ki he used. On the contrary, they seemed to burn with more force. This fire never goes out. It will continue to consume you until there is nothing left, and you are immortal, so there will always be fuel. Welcome to a life of torture, said Broly while using the flaming body of Alabama Zamasu to cook a veal chop. However, in the face of such suffering, despair, and humiliation, the stubbornness of Alabama Zamasu did not give up. His survival instinct, trained with millions of deaths the previous minutes, made every neuron in his brain work at the 6,699% of his capacity to get out of it alive. And found a way. Chop. 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 Oh, well thought out. You have been intelligent and dismembered your body with telekinesis and moved as far as possible all the parts that were on fire. If you had been a little slower, the flames would have spread throughout your body and it would be your end. Congratulations. You have survived another death sentence, said Broly while sarcastically applauding Alabama Zamasu's prowess, which was regenerating on the ground. And once he regenerated again, he would try to kill him again. I have to flee from here, Alabama Zamasu thought desperately. Until now he had stayed on Earth receiving that torture because he believed he could win. But that had been proven to be impossible. He had no chance to defeat that monster and he could kill him whenever he wanted. So while was still regenerating, and Broly consulted his list to choose a new twisted death sentence. Alabama Zamasu teleported his time ring onto his finger and escaped to another timeline. In another place other than Earth. Alabama Zamasu suddenly appeared. Ha 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 ha. I am still alive. I am still alive. Alabama Zamasu yelled like crazy as he hugged and kissing himself. He was still alive and most importantly, far from Broly's reach. The dream that he and many others shared. The true happiness. And after a few seconds in which he tried to calm down and overcome part of his trauma, he showed the characteristic smile and attitude of a megalomaniac cliché villain again. Who could have imagined that a monster like you could exist among those disgusting mort? Until he remembered Broly's speech in which he dismantled his charade, and became even crazier. Okay, he was right. I'm not doing it for justice, and I don't care. I just want to kill everyone. You may be invincible, but you have made a serious mistake, Broly. And that has been not to kill me in one of those millions of attempts.
With the time ring on my finger, I can go to any timeline, collect once again the Super Dragon Balls, and repeat the same thing I did with Goku. Ha 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 ha. With your body, I will no longer need to kill the pathetic Super Kais to eliminate the Hakations. I will be able to kill them personally. My plan will be even more perfect. I have to thank you, Broly, for that incredible gift you have given me. Wawa wawa. Wawa wawa. Wawa wawa. Said Alabama Zamasu, invaded by madness after having surviving to the greatest crisis he had ever imagined experiencing. Not only had he survived through thick and thin, he had managed to keep his mind, his spirit, his essence, his ambition intact even after suffering the greatest failure of his life. Everything he suffered at the hands of Broly would have killed anyone else at all levels. But not him. He had become the incarnation of the Phoenix. Not only had he survived, he had become even more powerful and more resolute. And would become even more powerful after possessing Broly's body. Thanks, Broly. Thank you for this wonderful gift. Wawa 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 wawa. Alabama Zamasu said to himself as he thought about how to implement his new plan. You're welcome, but I didn't do it with that intention. The only thing that is redeemable in you is how positive you are. You try to turn your problems into opportunities. Shouted Alabama Zamasu with outright terror upon seeing again the most monstrous, sadistic, and cruel being he had ever had the misfortune to meet. Just by hearing his voice, his heart stopped beating and his brain suffered a stroke, thus accumulating one more death to the marker. Zamasu only knew Broly since a few minutes ago. Even so, from his point of view, it is as if he had tortured him for years. And even though the last time he saw him was a few seconds ago, just like a Vietnam War veteran with post-traumatic stress had thousands of flashes that contained all the horror that he had to live and witness in that hellish place. Why are you so scared? Have you seen a monster or something? Broly said as he looked from side to side, pretending not to know why Alabama Zamasu had just pissed in his pants. How did you find me? How have you been able to follow me through time? Alabama Zamasu asked as he tried to get up from the ground. Although it wasn't easy, his legs didn't stop shaking. How the hell had he managed to follow him here? And how the hell did he know that he would be exactly in this timeline and era? How the hell had he found him? A sigh. Zamasu, 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 you never traveled in time. Broly patted Alabama Zamasu's head and showed him something very familiar that took out of his formless realm. See, this is the real time ring. The one you have in your hand is a fake that I exchanged. Instead of time travel, when you use it you get trapped in a perfect illusion that makes you think you've traveled in time. Did you really think that I wasn't going to confiscate this toy? Ha 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 ha. Said Broly as he returned the time ring to his private dimension and undid the illusion in which he had locked Alabama Zamasu. Then he realized that he had never left the Earth from Trunks' timeline. He was still in the same city, devastated by himself, while Goku, Trunks, and Vegeta began to look at him with some pity. A pity that wounded him in the soul as if burning daggers were stabbing him. Therefore, after realizing that the earlier outburst of optimism and megalomania had only been a ridiculous and humiliating sight to all who witnessed it, Alabama Zamasu began to unravel. Why? 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 Why are you doing this to me? Why? Why had Broly been killing him over and over again in the most twisted and painful ways possible? Why had he been humiliating him like this? Why had he destroyed the perfect image he had of himself? Why only after experiencing millions of deaths did he show him that he could do absolutely nothing against him? Why did he let him experience hope again to plunge him back into even deeper despair? Why? 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 It doesn't make sense. Except because his plan is to kill him and everyone, has killed his alternate wife, had destroyed his alternate stepson's life, and his biggest crime, ruin his barbecue. Why was he bothering so much to destroy him? Why was he doing all of this to him? Why? Evidently. Because it is extremely fun. Seeing how a pathetic, arrogant, and narcissistic piece of shit who thinks he is the best like you shows that despair by understanding and accepting that he is incapable of doing anything against the true most powerful being of all. Me. It's just delicious. I'm loving it. Kaya ha 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 ha. Hey. ha. Ha-ha-ha. Ha-ha-ha-ha-ha. Wha-ha-ha-ha-ha-ha-ha. Shouted Broly, who laughed like an extremely overacted perverse and mad cliché villain with an overdose of methamphetamine, cocaine, and dog urine. Just like Zamasu used to do. And he didn't like seeing himself in that strange mirror, nothing at all, this guy. He's a fucking unhinged, without restraint, a psycho without shame, a sadist without empathy, narcissist without mirror, a monster without a leash. He's crazy. He's disgusting. He's a fucking scum. He's like I have to run away from here right now. And the most efficient and effective way to escape FOV. Kai. What the hell is happening? Alabama Zamasu screamed in bewilderment and despair as he realized another terrible setback. Kai. But it was useless. Why doesn't work? Said Alabama Zamasu helpless and almost out of breath as he looked at Broly fearfully. He was unable to understand what this brewer's droop was due to, but it's very possible that he knew who the culprit was. And worst of all is that a part of him didn't want to know the answer. Why? Do you think you can do something in my presence that I don't authorize? Know your place, inferior being, said Broly, looking at him with the same contempt and disgust with which someone would look at an excrement, while as he used his causal invasion to prevent Alabama Zamasu from teleporting and crash. He also used spatial invasion to crush him to the ground, thus breaking some of his bones, and not only his bones. No. This time his spirit was completely destroyed. Zamasu had already understood that Broly was far superior to him in everything and that he couldn't defeat him. He is a narcissistic madman who had believed in his own delusions of grandeur, but wasn't such an idiot as not to recognize the situation. Even so, he always believed that he had a means with which to survive against that monster. His superior intelligence, with which he had managed to get to this point and with which he would possibly find a solution. His incredible power, with which he had managed to kill all the Hakation, indirectly, in an entire timeline, that grew every moment and that could even surpass Broly at some point. His just crusade to purify the universe, with which feel morally superior and justify all his actions before his enemies. His eternal immortality, with which he believed himself invincible in the face of any eventuality. His great ego and self-esteem, that made him believe that he is the best and that he had no limits. And last, but not least, his multiple escape methods like the time ring or the Kai, with which to make a strategic withdrawal in the unlikely event that something goes wrong. These were the pillars that held Zamasu's fighting spirit standing. With only one of them standing, Zamasu could keep fighting and trying to fulfill his ambition. But Broly gladly destroyed each and every one of those pillars, and thus reducing Zamasu into a crybaby. Ugh. SNFFF. SNFFF. GGGGG. Oh my god. Wahaha. Ing. UGHGGGHHHHGGGHHHH. Shouted the mentally destroyed Alabama Zamasu while trying to hold back his crying. But it was impossible, the tears wouldn't stop coming out as if they were a cataract, and the increase in gravity caused by Broly didn't help. However, for Broly that wasn't enough. Yes. Oh, let me taste your tears, Zamasu, says Broly as he literally. Your tears are so yummy, sweet, as he literally grabbed Zamasu by the head and started licking his tears straight from his eyes. Something that undoubtedly traumatized the already cracked Zamasu even more. But he wasn't the only one. What the fuck? Everyone felt chills and even the urge to throw up upon witnessing that brutal, crude, and disgusting act of bullying. Even Trunks couldn't help feeling some pity for his mortal enemy. Almost anyone rose instinctively from their chairs in disgust, as if they had seen a nasty bug crawling up their leg. And those who didn't do it weren't because they didn't feel disgust or rejection towards that disgusting act. It was because other emotions invaded the hearts of those who witnessed it. Like Yamcha, Vegeta, and Beerus, who froze in their respective armchairs due to the excruciating fear of imagining that this could happen to them too. Or Bulma and Bra, who started to move away from her side by sideways shifting their chairs. However, the standard timeline Broly wasn't bothered by their normal reaction, he was too busy admiring himself on screen. Oh. The tears of unfathomable sadness and despair. Yummy, yummy. You amuse me so much that I'm even beginning to think about not killing you, said Broly, still evilly licking Alabama Zamasu's left eye tears. When suddenly, apart from fear, despair, helplessness, and indescribable disgust among other thousands negative emotions, Alabama Zamasu noticed that he couldn't see with his left eye. And not only that, he had lost sensitivity in some areas of the left part of his body, something that he noticed immediately due to pain to which the other part of his body was being subjected due to the increased gravity. So after using much of his strength and will to turn his head and thus see what was happening to the left part of his body, his despair increased even more. "Aha! What is this? What are you doing to my body?" asked the crybaby Alabama Zamasu upon seeing that from his left eye a strange black energy was spreading to the rest of his body, devouring everything in its path. And Broly, obviously, with a lovely and creepy smile, explained to his toy what was doing with him. "I am slowly taking your body to a dimension of mine in which time only exists for me. Being trapped by me in there means living death. No matter how immortal you are, you won't die, but you won't live either. Your destiny is, be part of my collection and entertain me for all eternity." "Aha! Nuo!" Alabama Zamasu shouted when he realized that this was a fate worse than death. And due to that extreme fear, he tried to survive once more, despite knowing that everything was useless. Clash. So, just as he did with the Amatero, he started parts not infected with telekinesis and sent them as far as he could. Phew. Therefore, regenerating from one of those parts. Good idea to cut part of your body to stop the infection. You are a persistent cockroach. You know you are doomed, but still you cling to life. I congratulate you, but you run out of time, Broly said as he made a stopwatch appear and counted down 3, 2, 1, YA. And instantly, just as Broly predicted, the fusion between Zamasu's and Zamasu ended. However, it didn't end as everyone expected. Instead of separating as if they were magnets from the same pole as in all fusions, it was as if two people hit with gum tried to get away from each other without success. But this time those two Zamasus were the same gum. This is what usually happens when the fusion finish? It's disgusting, asked Trunks, still trying to understand how fusions worked. I don't think so, at least when we fuse we simply separate. Is it different when it's done with those earrings? Ached Goku, who was also ignorant in this matter. And obviously Broly, the living encyclopedia, tried to answer his questions. No, it would have to be the same, however, this is different. That is if. And once again in the usual timeline. As if both Zamasus are rejecting the fusion to end, said Broly in both timelines at the same time. Is that even possible? Beerus asked the scientists in the room if they could answer that question. Fusion or not, both of them are still Zamasus. It's possible that over this past hour they've likely become bound at cellular level, said Bulma and Gohan, giving their scientific approval to this somewhat unusual fact. Does that mean they will become one again? Asked Yamcha, that he began to be tempted to find himself on another timeline and merge in the hope of becoming stronger. Possibly. Technically, it's worrisome, but not much, answered Broly, not paying attention to this fact as he refilled his cola jug. Once again in Trunks' timeline. The Zamasus continued to resist ending their sticky relationship. We are one. They were still glued to each other and did everything possible to prevent separation. It was as if Siamese twins with two heads and one body were butting each other in the hope that both heads would merge together. Something strange, funny, and at the same time disgusting. Luckily, Broly was there to end this toxic relationship. Whatever, don't fight. We will cut the child in two and slash. And as if he were King Solomon or Moses, separated the two Zamasus, killing them collaterally. Well, Trunks, you can kill the bad Goku. I'll keep the psychopathic Kaioshin as a trophy. It doesn't bother you, does it? Broly asked as he grabbed the half-body of the Zamasu Kai and stored him in his private dimension without having received Trunks' reply. I don't care. He's the one I wanted to kill from the beginning. replied Trunks, ignoring that Broly had stolen one Zamasu, but he didn't care. The Zamasu with the body of Goku, who had killed his family and destroyed his home, was the one with whom he really had the grudge. Therefore, as he tried to do in previous chapters. FIU. 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 Burning attack. Boom. Thus destroying Black's body, reducing him to pieces. Mother. I have finally avenged you, said Trunks, closing another bitter stage in his life, with another revenge. Or maybe not. If I can object. Said Broly, pointing to the ground, or more specifically to the remains of Black. What? Everyone either in Trunks or Standard Timeline shouted. And they didn't scream for no reason. Those charred and severed pieces of flesh and bones began to move and grow as if they had a life of their own until each of them became a Black. What the hell is happening? Shouted Goku, disgusted to see even more evil versions of himself. This guy isn't supposed to be immortal, shouted Vegeta, that apart from not understanding what was happening, he didn't want to see so many Gokus in one place. Is that your multiplication technique? Has he learned it during the battle? Trunks asked Broly, trying to find a justification. I'm afraid none of that. His immortality and regenerative capacity has evolved after the fusion, and Black has acquired it too, obviously. Answered Broly, who had gotten used to pointing out the obvious. However, that stopped being a novelty for our heroes and viewers, since another alarming event occurred regarding all the Blacks. All of them became Alabama Zamasus. Without fussing again with his other self, that Blacks became Alabama Zamasu, with all his power and capacities. And Alabama Zamasu, just as shocked as the others, regained hope, and with it his madness. Ha 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 ha. All of them have become the Zamasu from before. There are dozens of them. This isn't good. Said Trunks with his usual pessimism. Yes, that's not good, he will make me work more than necessary, said Broly, while snapping his fingers. Biboo. A snap that detonated all Alabama Zamasus. And of its thousands of pieces that were scattered throughout the city, new Alabama Zamasus began to emerge. How many are there now? I lost the count in the number 100 inch, said Goku, who was starting to feel intimidated. This was out of his control right now, it was impossible for him to defeat so many. You see, it's like I said, his regeneration has evolved. I am right again, said Broly, that has always wanted to prove and remind everyone that he was always right. This not the time for that. Shouted everyone at Broly, either out or in the screen. Ha 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 ha. I knew it. I knew that couldn't be my end. I definitely am the chosen true god of this universe. Walla 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 hua. Shouted all the Alabama Zamasus synchronously, who seemed to have forgotten what had happened to them a few minutes ago when they got a power-up. Fortunately for everyone but him, Broly was there to remind him of his place. You just don't learn, do you? Feel the power of a real god. Shubaku Tensei. In this way, a black sphere formed in the sky and began to generate an attractive gravitational wave that only affected the Alabama Zamasus. What the? What's happening? That thing is absorbing us, shouted the Alabama Zamasus, who tried by all the possible means not be drawn into that dangerous sphere. But was useless. It didn't matter if they flew with all their might in the other direction, hold on the ground like grim death, or attacked the sphere with all their might. The sphere kept attracting Alabama Zamasus one after another, crushing each other until they formed a giant mortar of Alabama Zamasus in the sky. As if they were a liquid metal surrounding a spherical electromagnet. If any part of your body is dismembered, that part regenerates separately, thus creating infinite Zamasus each time you are injured. Now that you are together, I wonder. If I destroy all the atoms in your bodies at one, what would happen to your immortality? Do you want to try? Said Broly with his usual evil smile as he pointed his hand towards the agglutination of Alabama Zamasus. What are you trying to do? Shouted the Alabama Zamasus, still not crushed by the other Alabama Zamasus, and that therefore were able to hear and see what Broly was about to do. Omega Disintegration Beam. Said Broly, launching a huge energy attack that even destroyed the space in its path. The outcome was obvious, there was no trace of Alabama Zamasu, he had been completely destroyed. And I didn't even need to use a special ability, said Broly, who for some reason considered that an energetic attack capable of destroying everything, including space, wasn't a special ability. Back on the standard timeline. Is it over this time? Asked Beerus, quite bored in his chair after waking up. From almost an hour ago, he already knew that Alabama Zamasu was dead. He wanted this to end so he could go home to do nothing again. I don't think so, said Whis as he pointed the sky in the reproduction, pointing something very unusual and disturbing. And thanks to Whis pointing it out, everyone else noticed, as generally people don't realize these things until someone points it out in the manga. What's on Trunks' timeline, the Earth's sky had turned greenish and a great multitude of ghostly faces appeared in that lugubrious sky. Faces that looked suspiciously like Zamasu's. They even laughed like a cliché villain, just like him. Zamasu's face is everywhere. What the hell is happening? Asked Bulma, who didn't know what to answer. Her knowledge was purely scientific. What was happening right now was beyond her field of expertise. That's why she asked her husband, who specialized in the field of the absurd and paranormal. And his answer was, oh. 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 What does oh mean? Asked Bulma again upon hearing that indeterminate and worrying answer from her husband. Although the tone of voice and facial expression he was using was the most worrying of all, the last time he answered her in the same way when she caught him red-handed when he was teaching Bra to insult when she was a baby, especially to Vegeta. I'm afraid I have discovered what happens if Zamasu is disintegrated without leaving a single atom. His immortality is still active, but since he had no body, his soul tried to possess something. And since he has determined that all of you are too weak to defeat me and it's impossible to possess me unconsciously, he has decided to possess the universe itself, answered Broly, avoiding mentioning that everything that had happened was his fault. What? Shouted almost everyone, shocked by that absurd revelation as they looked at Whis and Shin, looking for a second opinion that doesn't sound so absurd. I think it makes sense, Whis said, who couldn't think of a better explanation. This is terrible. Broly, you have to do something, said Shin, alarmed to see his universe from another timeline in that state. I think this has gotten out of control, answered Broly, trying to hide his concern and guilty feeling. Something that made everyone extremely worried. Where the hell had the omnipotent, omnipresent and omniscient Broly hidden when he was needed most? What happens? Didn't you boast of being the most powerful? Why don't you fix the mess you've created? Shouted Beerus to Broly, taking advantage of the best and maybe the last situation of his life to protest against his greatest enemy to date. And for the first time, Broly didn't know how to respond to the grumpy cat. Back on the Trunks timeline. The three minor Saiyans were brainstorming to solve this strange situation while Broly defended himself from time to time of his accusations, and now was Goku's turn. Broly-san, this looks a lot like the illusion you put me into years ago. In that illusion, you devised a method to solve. Goku, that was a movie that I made up and that method doesn't exist, and of course I can destroy it. But if I do, the risk of destroying the entire universe is 99%. I'm not sure I can eliminate only Zamasu. My control of destructive powers is not perfect. Unlike others, I spend my day creating ingredients and other things for people to enjoy. I'm not a fucking genocide, answered Broly, whose words didn't reach the hearts of his viewers, who saw him kill the same guy over and over again for almost an hour without repeating the same method even once. Then what do we do? At this rate, the whole universe will be destroyed by that thing, said Vegeta, that like Beerus was taking advantage of the moment to protest to Broly. Destroy Zamasu without destroying the universe, Goku said to himself, and thus think better, when he suddenly had an idea. Broly-san, is Omni-chan still alive here? Are you talking about Zeno? I'm sure he does. Shin says that Zeno is the one person that cannot be defeated by anyone, assured Broly, broadcasting Shin's message from one timeline to another. Great. And would he be able to eliminate Zamasu without destroying the universe? Asked Goku again. Yes. I suppose so. Zeno is capable of making anything disappear. This is his universe after all. He may be extremely selective, answered Broly again, explaining his theory. It was just a guess, but that answer was all Goku needed to make a mildly suicidal decision. Great. I think I have an idea, Goku said as he took something out of his pocket. That thing. Beerus and Shin yelled so loudly upon see that button that they were almost heard in Trunks' dimension. However, not only the native gods of Universe 7 were scared, also Whis, but without destroying anyone's eardrums is he trying to. However, since no one warned or knocked out Goku to stop him from doing something stupid. Klin. He used the button, summoning the Zeno-sama of that timeline in that world. Boop. Sea-Link. Sea-Lush. And for some reason he was summoned in the air, he didn't fly and fell headlong to the ground. Again in the standard timeline. Oh. I think this wasn't a good idea, said Broly, putting more sugar in his tea while pretending don't be nervous. What? Shouted Shin, who fainted for the third time that day. The second time was when Broly hit him accidentally when he threw a soda can on his head. That idiot. He has done it. That idiot has done it. Shouted Beerus, regretting not having destroyed Goku when he could, but it was too late now. Goku was about to create an apocalypse worse than the one he had tried to prevent. That's problematic, very problematic, said Whis, who shared the same opinion and enthusiasm as his pet. I think now things have gotten even more out of control. Right? Asked Bulma to his husband, which nodded. Once again in Trunks' timeline. Who are you? Did you call me here? Zeno asked Goku, who didn't understand what was happening. A few seconds ago, he was playing hide and seek with his lackeys, and now he had been summoned to another place by someone who he didn't know. Something very, 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 very strange. I'm Son Goku. I'm friends with you in my world, answered to his Deus Ex Machina more or less friend of in another timeline. An explanation with many gaps that for some stupid reason convinced Zeno, who after solving the misunderstanding looked around him. What happened here? It looks terrible. You did this? Asked Zeno to Goku, hinting that he didn't like post-apocalyptic futures or poorly ordered rooms. And that he also seemed to like to punish those who created such disasters. No. He did it, said Goku, pointing to the sky where Zamasu's faces kept laughing like they inhaled nitrous oxide. He's annoying, said Zeno, pointing the obvious, with a less cheerful tone of voice. And seeing that Zeno began to share the same hatred they felt for Zamasu, Goku tried to convince him to do their job without explicitly asking for it. Don't you think you should erase him? He's fussed with one of your universes to do evil things. He's a terrible guy. And Goku, with great intelligence and insight, achieved his goal. You're right, said Zeno, who agreed with Goku, more or less, better without a world like this. World, shouted everyone either in the Standard and Trunks timeline. What everyone but Goku feared had happened. Zeno was about to make everything disappear. OMG. I knew this couldn't end well. Guys, get close to me. We come back home, Broly said as he teleported everyone close to him, including Mai, to run away with them whether they want to or not. And the time machine? Shouted Trunks, who didn't understand how Broly intended to return to his timeline without his most valuable possession. I have already stored it in my dimension. Let's go back, Broly said as he disappeared with everyone from that timeline. Begone. Timeline that also disappeared after a few seconds. At the same time in the Standard timeline. Inside the movie theater that Broly had created in the garden. A group of 5 people appeared next to the door. We are back, said Broly as he released Goku, Vegeta, Trunks and Mai and walked towards the other Broly in the room to join again. That's great. All the Z warriors sighed in relief upon seeing that their friends and or family survived the most absolute apocalypse they have ever seen. A moment of relief and happiness that was slightly clouded by Beerus, who again explained, but this time with a solid proof, why everyone, especially Goku, should avoid having all possible contact with Zeno. And obviously by Broly. If we were going to destroy the universe in the end, I could have done it myself. Because of you, Goku, not only the Universe 7 was destroyed but an entire timeline. All the people in all the universes in the timeline of Trunks perished. Are you happy now? Said Broly, scolding Goku for having committed that great irresponsibility. A comment that in principle was correct, but that earned more than deserved criticism. It's your fault. If you hadn't been arrogant and killed with your anti-immortal abilities or sealed Zamasu, that wouldn't have happened. Shouted Beerus and Bulma, who flew at full speed towards Broly to shout all this to his face. A never-before-seen alliance that almost puts Broly against the ropes. But nothing could surpass the shameless level of Broly, which answered this. We can look for culprits everywhere and we would surely find them. Shin for naming Goku to Zamasu, Shin for causing the situation in which he needed to name Goku, Beerus and Kampa for organizing a tournament in which Goku participated, the dude who uploaded the video of Goku to GodTube that Zamasu watched later, to Zeno for revealing information to Zamasu, Zalama for creating the Super Dragon Ball, all the gods and their stupid system, Goku itself. And of course,
Vegeta. This time I haven't done anything. Literally nothing at all. Strongly objected Vegeta, which joined Beerus and Bulma's alliance, thus adding more pressure to Broly. And this time, Broly was forced to admit his mistake, at least partially, and it may also be a little, very little, my fault. But don't worry, we have all returned home safely, and Zamasu has been defeated. Everything has ended well. Our entire timeline has been vanished. Mai and Trunks objected too. Everything has ended well. Fairly well. Broly said, avoiding making eye contact with everything while looking at the horizon with optimism. Meanwhile, on Trunks' timeline. Or rather, the former Trunks timeline, which was destroyed by Zeno, was replaced by an infinite white space where there was absolutely nothing. Nothing except who destroyed it, Zeno-sama, that floated from one place to another to kill some time. Everything has disappeared. What can I play right now? Said Zeno to himself while thought deeply about some game to kill his boredom. Until he finally figured the better solution to his great problem. I know. I will float around. Hui hui. Hui. Zeno said as he flew from side to side doing cartwheels and strange movement patterns. When suddenly... Crack! Behind him, the space was cracked, creating a black fissure in that white infinity which was enlarged by big and powerful hands, from which emerged a huge and intimidating being displaying an evil smile. We are finally alone, Zeno-chan. If you want to support me, check out my Patreon at https://www.patreon.com/Kaioshin. I tend to polls that decide important plot stuff in my P at Trian. Many thanks to my awesome patrons. Wilmette Duverne, Yami Tancho, Harold's Martinsons, Ben Phillips. If you liked the content, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. I'll stay here until next time.